All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Tzadi Vav, Maseches Eruvin. So we left off actually top word, top line. We had a machlokes, we had a new Geshmaka Mishnah in a new parak. So it's talking about person finds tefillin. And we had a machlokes of how to, in the Rishus Rabbim, and you can't carry it, so it's bizarre, you can't leave it there. So what do? So you put it on or wear it. Put it on or wear it, take it to the side, even though, right, l'chayra, right, the Shabbos is not the time of tefillin. So we had a whole machlokes how to understand, there was a machlokes, right? The machlokes was that Tanakama says you take it out one set at a time. In other words, you put on one pair, and Rabbi Gamliel, and that was Tanakama, we established to be Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Gamliel said, no, you can put on two at a time. And we had a whole question of how to understand the machlokes. We had two suggestions, and now we're at the top of Tzadi Vav and Aleph, first word, top line. Also, here's another suggestion: V'boy Sema, or you can say the Kuli Yama. Let's say Sloi Boy Kavana. Really, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin, you don't need kavana. So even if you're putting on the tefillin, your intentions are to go ahead and carry it into a chatzir, you're fulfilling a mitzvah. Over here, the machlokes is as to whether one would violate Bal Tosif. The Tanakama according to the Tanakama, to violate Bal Tosif, you don't need kavana, and therefore, since he's putting on the tefillin, the second pair would be right. He would be in violation. No, you need kavana to violate the issue of Bal Tosif. Bal Tosif is you can't add to the mitzvah, and by wearing two sets of tefillin, you're adding to the mitzvah, and therefore, but since he's not intending to do a mitzvah because he's just carrying it to the chatzir, he would not be in violation, and therefore, since there's room on the head and an arm to put on two, therefore you put on two and not anymore, but you can put up to two because you're not violating Bal Tosif, or V'boy Sema, or even another suggestion as to what machlokes is, eat severe on the Shabbos man tefillin, if you hold that Shabbos is the time of tefillin, as actually we're soon going to see this question as whether one puts on tefillin on Shabbos. Everyone agrees, right? Everyone agrees that you don't need intentions to violate it. And also you don't need kavana, right, to fulfill the obligation. You don't need kavana. Over here, the question is whether one violates it shelo bizmano, right? If he goes over here, in other words, Bal Tosif, if Shabbos is not the time of tefillin, okay, then by me putting on tefillin now when it's not the time, do I violate Bal Tosif? The Tanakama savar loy by kavan. Tanakama holds, right, you don't need loy by kavan, you don't need kavan, and therefore you do violate, therefore you only wear one. We're going to ask him that in a minute. No, you need kavan to violate Bal Tosif when it's not the time of tefillin, and therefore by putting on two sets of tefillin, two pairs of tefillin, I'm not in violation of Bal Tosif. So we want to understand, according to the Tanakama, the first opinion, if you're over Bal Tosif without intentions, when it's not the time for tefillin, like Shabbos, why are you even allowed to put on one? You're violating Bal Tosif. The Torah says, our understanding is that you're supposed to wear tefillin for 6 days, and now you're wearing on the seventh day. You violate Bal Tosif. So you shouldn't even be allowed to wear one pair of tefillin according to this understanding. And furthermore, Hayasha b'shmini b'sukkah, one who goes ahead and sleeps in the sukkah on the 8th day, and those 7 days we're commanded to go ahead and live in the sukkah. If one goes ahead on the 8th day, Hayasha b'sukkah, you lock it, right? He should go ahead and get malchus, right? Because he's adding shelo bizmano, right? The Torah says 7 days, since he's doing an 8th day. So rather, it's clear that a machlokes is like we said in the beginning, which, as Rashi understands the whole machlokes as, we just had 5 suggestions how to understand the Mishnah, or how to understand the machlokes in the Mishnah. So Rashi says, rather, the machlokes over here is whether Shabbos is considered to be the zman tefillin or not. And now here comes the question: the Shabbos is zman tefillin. Okay, so who is the opinion that holds that Shabbos is considered to be zman tefillin? Right? So now, if we say that the machlokes is, according to one opinion, Shabbos is the time of tefillin, and therefore you only do the mitzvah, which is wearing one, you can't wear two. And Gamliel would hold, no, it's not the time of tefillin. So therefore, you can wear it, and there's no violation of wearing it, of wearing two, because it's Shalosh Zman Zod Tefillin. So who's the one who Shmis on the Shabbos is considered to be Zman Tefillin? So maybe Rebbe Kiva. Let's say the first suggestion is Rebbe Kiva. The Tanya in the Brayso, the pasuk says, "V'shamarta es achuka hazois l'madei miyamim yamima." So the pasuk in Parshas Bo. So it says over there, and you should go ahead and keep this this chukah, these laws, right? V'shamarta, right? You guard these laws, right? In its time, l'moada miyamim yamima, from its days yamima. So yamim v'lo, and over there is discussing the current Pesach, is also discussing tefillin. So now, according to Rabbi Kiva, he applies this to tefillin. So this command, this pasuk is also referring to tefillin. It says yamim. So what do you mean yamim? Right? So it says yamim v'lo lailos, right? Yamim v'lo lailos, days and not nights, right? So in other words, you're patur from tefillin at night, and it says mi yamim the days v'lo kol yamim, and not all days. Some days, not all days. So which days do we not? Prat l'shabbasos v'yom tovim. Divi Rabbi Yosi, except for Shabbos and Yantav. So according to Rabbi Yosi, night, Shabbos, right, and Yantav, not time for tefillin. And Rabbi Kiva Omer lo'ina merchuka zu elin Pesach bilvad. No, the part over here, chukah, you have to keep to the statutes, is not referring to tefillin at all. It's not excluding tefillin from nights. It's not excluding tefillin from Shabbos. It's talking about every year you have to declare Pesach in its proper time. Elin Pesach bilvad. Ve'elo haditran that we learned in the Mishnah. Ha Pesach v'amila mitzaseh. So Shaila over here, a separate Mishnah we're not really going to get into, but over there is discussing if one violates something, is a chayiv kares, and there's only two. If one violates that is chayiv kares of Mrs. Aseh, and what are those? You are commanded to go ahead and bring a korban pesach. If you do not, you're chayiv kares. You are commanded to go ahead and get a bris milah. If you do not, you violate kares. So the Shaila over there was if it was let me just the Rashi, right? If one does a b'shogeg, right? The question is, does he bring a chatas or not? So over there, he says that was the discussion over there. So it says a mitzvah aseh, and since it's a mitzvah aseh, you don't bring a chatas for a mitzvah aseh. You only bring a mitzvah a chatas for a lois aseh. So that was said over there. So lema deloy Rabbi Kiva. Let's say that Mishnah is not like Rabbi Kiva that says the mitzvah of Pesach is only talking is only an aseh, and there's no lois aseh. Why? Rabbi Kiva. If it's Rabbi Kiva, now Rabbi Kiva. Kevan the Mukla of Pesach, since we just said that Rabbi Kiva learns this pasuk has nothing to do with tefillin, it's only talking about the korban Pesach. So he says, Dik Rabbi Kiva Kevan the Mukla of Pesach, Lav Nami Ika. There's also a lav. Why? Because the Rabbi Avid, I'm Rabbi Eloi, Rabbi Avid, I'm Rabbi Eloi, Kol Mokum Shenemar Hishamer Pen V'al Eino Ela B'Loi Saseh. Anytime the Torah says Hishamer, all right. The lashon of shmira, which it says over here, it says v'shamarta, right? You shall keep. So it says over there, eino ela b'loisaseh. It's giving you a loisaseh. So what do you see? If it's talking about the only korban pesach and it says hishamer, that means there's also a loisaseh of not bringing. There's a loisaseh if you don't bring the korban pesach. If you don't, so therefore, since it's a loisaseh, you should be chayiv to bring a chatos. So therefore, that Mishnah is not like Rabbi Kiva, because this Mishnah clearly says it's only an aseh and there's no lois aseh. And Rabbi Kiva l'chara would say there's a lois aseh because it says the word of a shemarta. So Gemara says no. Afilu tema Rabbi Akiva, even when it says Rabbi Kiva, hishamer the lav. Hishamer the aseh. If it says the word hishamer by mitzvah, it's talking about a lav, therefore it adds another lav. And it says over there the word hishamer by an aseh, it's talking about an aseh. So therefore, even according to Rabbi Kiva, he could say that no, that he could be the author of that Mishnah, and it says the shamarta is giving a lois say not necessarily. Hishamer would only give a lois say if it's talking about a commandment not to do something. But since this commandment is to do something, I bring your korban pesach on erev pesach. Therefore, it's not considered to be a lois say there. Now, the Gemara questions, Rabbi Kiva Shabbos Zman Tefillin. You're going to tell me that Rabbi Kiva holds, all right, that you want to suggest that he was the one who held that on Shabbos is the time to wear tefillin. V'atani will learn in a brayso. Rabbi Kiva Omer Yachol Yadiach Adam Tefillin b'Shabbos V'Yom Tovim. You might think a person go ahead and wear tefillin on Shabbos and Yantiv. Tamaloymar. Therefore, it says V'Haya L'Chol La'Ois Al Yadecha. There should be a sign, an os, right? An os, a sign between you and God, right? So Misha Tzrichet Os. In other words, only that which needs an os. Only that which needs a sign, that's a person who's chayiv to go ahead and put an os on. Yatsu Ela Shein Gufaros, right? That would exclude these Shabbos and Yontif. That those themselves, those are testament itself that you believe in Hashem, right? Because he created the world in 6 days, and the seventh day he rested. So too we, right? We work 6 days and we rest the seventh day. That is an os, right? So therefore, I don't need tefillin because tefillin is its own os. So therefore, only days where there's no os, i.e., the other 6 days. But Shabbos is not a time of tefillin. So Ella, and as Rabbi Kiva. So Ella, Haitanahu, rather no, a different Tana. The Tanya, hold on. Quiet. You. Yeah, sorry. All right, sorry about that. So we say, so Ella, Haitanahu, the Tanya, learn Brisa, Hanir B'Laila, a person who's up at night. Ratza cholatz, ratza miniach. If he wants, he can go ahead and he can take off his tefillin. But if he wants, he can continue wearing his tefillin even at night. Divir Reb Nassan. That's the opinion of Reb Nassan. Now remember, there's 2 times that we're discussing not wearing tefillin. There's nights and there's Shabbos, right? 2 separate days, right? Are they always together? Or maybe one would hold the other, we'll see. So the first opinion says, at night, you can go ahead and wear it if you want. Divir Reb Nassan. And Yonasan Hakitani Yomer Ein Meni Tefillin B'Layla. He says you can't wear tefillin at night. Now, Midalayla Latana Kama, right? Midalayla Tanakama Zvan Tefillin. Shabbos Nami Zvan Tefillin. By the fact that Tanakama held that you can go ahead and wear it at night if you choose, right? Reb Nosson says you can go ahead if you want, you can continue wearing your tefillin at night. So too, he probably also holds that on Shabbos you wear your tefillin. So Gemara says no. Dilma Sfirle Lila's man tefillin hu. Shabbos lav's man tefillin hu. No, maybe it's different. Maybe he holds that night is part of you can wear tefillin, right? It's nothing to do with os. But Shabbos is not as man tefillin. Maybe the Hashpin later Rabbi Kiva, because we learned that Rabbi Kiva the Amar Lila's man tefillin hu. Shabbos lav's man tefillin hu. Because according to Rabbi Kiva, we can say that night is still the time of wearing tefillin, but Shabbos is not. So Ella, once again, hi Tanahu. Rather, it's this time. The Tana learned Brisa. Michal Bas Kushi. Michal, who was the daughter of Shaul, Haisa Manechas Tefillin. She used to put on tefillin. Velo, everyone talks about, Rashi's granddaughters, right? So he says, so Michal put on, right? The wife of David, the daughter of Shaul, Haisa Manechas Tefillin, Veloi Michu B'Chamim. The Chamim did not stop her. All right. In other words, l'chayra, it seemed fine for a woman to wear tefillin. V'ishto Shel Yona, Haisa Ayla L'Regel. And the wife of Yonah, she used to go ahead and be Oil L'Regel. She would go every year. And the Chachamim did not stop her. Now, by the fact that the Chachamim, let's concentrate on the first case, did not stop her from wearing tefillin. Alma, Ksavri, mitzvahs aseh shelo azman gramahi. Now, women are commanded in all mitzvahs that do not depend on time. However, men. But if it's something which is dependent on time, they're putter, right? Something which is dependent on time, they're putter. So something like, right, so tefillin, right? So by tefillin, they allowed her to go ahead and wear tefillin. It's a constant mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah says non grama. And therefore, if it's a constant mitzvah, that means you do it on Shabbos. That means you do it at nights, right? That's why they allowed her to do it. So you see, clearly, according to this opinion, Shabbos is considered as man tefillin because it's shelo as man grama. Right? The Gemara asked, Vidilma Savarla, perhaps he holds like Rabbi Yaisi. Perhaps he holds like Rabbi Yaisi. The Omar Nashim Smuchas Rishus. That according to Rabbi Yaisi, we have the shaila is over there that a woman can go ahead and lean on the animal, even despite the fact the pasuk says Daber al Bnei Yisrael, and we learn over there Bnei Yisrael, the Benos Yisrael, that only men are commanded and women are not commanded. So in mitzvah aseh, right? Shezman grama, which women are not commanded to do, right? So something like that, right? Let's say lulav, right? So something like that, they're not commanded to, but according to Rabbi Yossi, they're allowed to do it. So maybe Michal, right? So maybe Michal, even though she wasn't commanded to do it because it's a mitzvah shezman grama, because Shabbos is usher, right? And night is usher, right? Nevertheless, they allowed her to do it because a woman, if she wants, she can do a mitzvah shezman grama, right? Because Rabbi Yossi right now, because reshus. Dila teimach, if you don't say that, isha sheyona haisa ola l'regel b'lo michaba miikol mandam the regel lav mitzvah shezman grama. If that's the case, because look at the second case, ola regel, everybody agrees ola regel is not a constant mitzvah, right? It's only a mitzvah that takes place, right, during certain periods of time when it's the shlosh regalim. They didn't stop her. So clearly you see that something which is a mitzvah shezman grama, according to this, a woman can do. So too, it has no proof, right, that Shabbos is considered to be as matzil. Maybe Shabbos is not as matzil. And the reason why they allowed her to wear it is because a woman can do a mitzvah. Shazman grama. So Alex of Rishus, rather it must be the Rishus. How can I be Rishus? So does Rishus. If a woman, if she wanted to go, she wasn't commanded to wear it, but rather if she wanted, she could do it, and that's why she did it. So now we're still trying to figure out who is the one who holds that Shabbos is considered to be Zman Tefillin. So Ella Haitanu. Is this the Tani Luna Brisa Hamaitzi Tefillin? Very similar to our Mishnah. One who goes ahead and finds Tefillin, Machnisin Zug Zug, right? One goes ahead and brings in one pair at a time, right? Like our Tanakama Mishnah. Echad ha'ish ve'echad isha. Whether it's a man who finds them or a woman who finds it, right? Your wife is walking and she sees tefillin on the floor. She puts on the tefillin, she carries it into or she wears it into a chatzir. Echad chadashos ve'echad ishanos, right? Whether they are new. In other words, if they're new, then it's a suffix. How do we know this is tefillin? Maybe it was a kameya, maybe it was something that was amulet, maybe it's something you made for health, or maybe it was an established pair of tefillin. Obviously, that one you can do it, right? You can go ahead and carry it. Divrei Meir, it's a opinion of Rabbi Meir, who's our Tanakama, and Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda argues and says, no. If it comes to the new or old, perhaps the new one is kameya. We don't allow you to go ahead and violate the Rabbanan of putting on a tefillin. So the only machlokes over there between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir is whether it's talking about whether there's a suffix as to whether this new tefillin is a kameya, but an established pair of tefillin, then you go ahead and that you can for sure wear. But the fact that he said echad ish ve'echad isha. Right, about the isha loy pligi. No one argues there. Everyone says a woman can go ahead and put on the tefillin. So since a woman can put on tefillin, it must be that shmamina mitzvah say shalos man gramahu. It must be a mitzvah that a woman is commanded in, such as tefillin, because tefillin is every day, even Shabbos. The chol mitzvah say shein eina zan grama nashim chayavos, and any mitzvah say that is not dependent on time, a woman is obligated. So the Gemara says no. The dilma savar la Rabbi Yosi. Perhaps it's like Rabbi Yosi. Right? Maybe it's the same deflection we just had before. We'll just say it again, right? Maybe really it's a misas on grama because Shabbos your putter, and the reason why we allowed the woman, we allow a woman to go ahead and put on tefillin and perform this mitzvah, right? By wearing the tefillin to a chatzir is because like Rabbi Yosi, maybe we hold like Rabbi Yosi, damar nashim semchas, right? Damar nashim semchas rishus. Because a woman, right, is allowed to go ahead and if she wants to, she can do a mitzvah say shazman grama. So Gemara says no. Right? No, we won't think of why. Because we already know. We can't say that they hold like this because we already know for a fact that Rabbi Meir does not hold like this halacha of Rabbi Yosi that a woman can go ahead and perform it, and Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold. Where do we see that? Lo Rabbi Meir, so like Rabbi Yosi. The time we learn in the Mishnah, right? We don't stop a young child who's trying to practice blowing shofar, right, on Yontif, right? On Yontif, he's blowing, so we don't stop a child from blowing it. Hanashim ma'akvin, but we stop a woman. So what do you see over here? So we see over here, we stop a woman. Why? Because a woman is not allowed to blow shofar. Not that she's not commanded to, she's not allowed to. So, and this is Rabbi Meir. So we see Rabbi Meir says you're not allowed to. So therefore, if Shabbos is not considered to be the Zman of tefillin, right? Then a woman wouldn't be allowed to put on tefillin. He says she could wear it out. It must be that he holds that Shabbos is Zman tefillin, right? The like Rabbi Yehuda, so also say Rabbi Yehuda does not hold like Rabbi Yosi. Why did Tanya learn the Bryce? It's the pasuk says Daber al bnei Yisrael. The samach it says speak to bnei Yisrael. The samach, which is we were referring to before, when a person makes a korban, right? That it says that Daber tell bnei Yisrael to go ahead and lean. You do smicha. You lean on the animal when you bring the korban. And Bnei Yisrael samchim ve'ein benos Yisrael samchas. So we see Bnei Yisrael leans and benos Yisrael are samchas. That is Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shimon. I'm nashim samchas rishus. And a woman's allowed to if she wants, like we saw earlier. And the stam sifri mani Rabbi Yehuda. And who is the stam sifri? That is Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, we see that according to Rabbi Yehuda, right? He argues with Rabbi Yosi and says a woman is not allowed to go ahead and perform. So according to both of them now, we both hold they hold if the woman's not commanded, she's not allowed to. Yet they allow a woman to go ahead and put on tefillin and wear it out. It must be that they hold that Shabbos is also considered to be Zman tefillin, right? Fine. That was that case. New case. So like I don't know, 5, 6, or 10 lines down from the bottom. Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Hamaitzi tcheles b'shuk. L'shainis psulos. One who's out, he's in the shuk, and he sees something in the shuk, right? And we know by tzitzis, a person should go ahead and wear tzitzis that were made l'shem tzitzis, right? Both the tchelas and the threads, that should be lishma. So a person who finds a strip of tchelas, right, of the tchelas in the shuk, right? Right? If he finds the strips of tchelas as psulos, why? Because perhaps they were made for other garments, other clothing, and therefore it wasn't made for the purpose of tzitzis, and therefore you can't go ahead and wear it. However, chutin, but strings, ksherim. Chutin are kosher, because if you find these chutin, those were made for the purpose of tzitzis. So Gemara says, "Ma'ishna l'shainas." What's the reason by l'shainas? He says, "No, Adamar l'daita de glima at savinu." Maybe because of the purpose of a clothes, right? That's why it was dyed that color. So chutinami name l'daita de glima tavinu. Maybe say that the strings also, the threads were also made for the purpose of clothing. What's the difference? So it says no, b'shizurim. So we're talking about a case of whether the threads were twisted. When they're twisted, that those are only usually done for tzitzis, not done for a shirt. So the Gemara says no. Shizurim nami nema daita the shifta the glima afinu. All right. So he said, oh no, over here maybe we're talking about a case of that the person went ahead and at the bottom, let's say the hem, right, where it goes at the bottom of the dress or a shirt, right, then they use twisted threads at the bottom. So twisted threads is not used for the main part of the garment, but it's used for the bottom of the garment. If it's used for the bottom of the garment, right, then that's what people use it for. So what do you see? So you see that if you find a pair of twisted thread, it might be for tzitzis or it might be for the bottom hem of a garment. So our answer is when they're cut up, they're smaller. They're smaller than those are commonly used for tzitzis, but it would not be used for clothing. So the kuli high vadai loy tarchin, because if they're cut up, then people aren't tarech that much. They're not going to go that much out of the way to go ahead and use small pieces of twisted thread for a coat. So therefore, someone doesn't go too much out of the way for that reason, and therefore, if you find it, you can assume it was made for tzitzis. So Amar Rav, chiyadam tarech la'asa is kamei tefillin. Well, what do you mean? Well, you have a whole issue that person, right? If he's not going to go out of the way, so therefore must be for a mitzvah. So what about a case of a kameah, right? This amulet that was made for one to get better, and he went ahead and he put in all the effort to make it like tefillin. The Tanakh we learn in the Mishnah, but is pater. So we see in our Mishnah that one who finds a new tefillin perhaps was an amulet. So we see a person does go way out of his way to go ahead and make something else that wasn't for a mitzvah. So maybe the same, so too by the cut threads, the short twisted threads, maybe those were made for a shirt and not made for tzitzis. So Reb Zera li'ava beresa says Reb Zera to Ahava, his son, Puk tani lahu, go out and teach it. Ha'maitzid ches b'shuk l'shaynes psulim v'chutin v'sakin ksherim. If one goes ahead and he goes out in the shuk and he finds tchelas, those are possible because perhaps those are made for clothing. But if he finds short, cut, twisted strings, then those are kosher. Why? Lefish ein adam tarech, because a person doesn't, do so much effort for something which is not a mitzvah. So Rava, mishum detani lo ava b'rei Reb Zera kafi taliba. Right? Just because, right? Ava, the son of Reb Zera, right, taught this. We have to hang our hat on it. Right? We have to follow it. V'tanan, our Mishnah says, b'meder murim. No, you're saying people don't go out of their way to do things that are non-mitzvahs. V'tanan, our Mishnah says, b'meder murim b'lishanos. Only with old ones, old established things that we know to be tefillin. If I have a chadash, if I have a new one, then it's pater. Right? So we see people clearly do go out of their way to make amulets, and people would go out of their ways also to make the hem. Rather, the shaila is over there, that which a person is tarech is actually machlokas tanaim. The tani in a brayso, hamaitzi tefillin. One who goes ahead and finds tefillin machlisim zug zug. Echad ish v'echad isha. One who goes ahead and finds tefillin, he goes ahead and puts on one pair at a time, whether it's a man or a woman who finds it. The echad chadashos v'echad yishenos, whether they're new or they're old. Divrei me'as, according to opinion of Meir. Rabbi Yehuda aiser b'chadashos umati b'yishenos. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's aser with new ones because that could be a kameya and mati b'yishenos, but old ones are okay because those are established tefillin. So Alma, what do you see? So Marsav Tarach Inish. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a person will be Tareach, right? A person will be Tareach, and therefore that's the reason why it's a Kameya that looks like it's tefillin because a person went out of the way. Or Marsav Loi Tarach Inish. And the other one holds that no, a person will not go out of his way to go ahead and do something which was extra, and therefore we'll say in this case that therefore in this case, if you find it, you know for sure it was a mitzvah, and therefore a man or a woman can go ahead and put on a tefillin and break it and bring it into a chatzir so it's safe. All right, shkoyach everybody. We'll stop here at the 2 dots Sunday morning, Mitzvah Shem, 7 o'clock. See y'all there, and everyone have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful Shabbos.